Hey, welcome back to another group therapy session. It's our 9th session this week, and I'm just going to go live on Twitter as well. Hi everyone, we're live again on our 9th live group therapy session. I'm going to start with our contract as usual, and I'm going to go through it briefly, but you can get the full contract and statement of intent and everything from the link below any of the other map sessions. So starting off, I'm a person-centered counsellor. Person-centeredness is about each client or each person being their unique selves and then being the educated person on being you. So all I am is the environment in which you become your greatest self. And we want you to gradually learn to become knowledgeable of your full spectrum of self so that you can stay within your safe spectrum of self, knowing how to look after each end of you. The fuck it, there's no more life, let's just whatever, and the I'm so depressed, there's no more life, whatever. We want to stay in this middle bit where it's great life and we can get the most out of ourselves when we look after this. But I'm not knowledgeable on you. I'm knowledgeable on me, and I'm kind of knowledgeable on a few other things, but to get to you, I have to make an environment where you're safe enough to meet yourself, and that's what I'll be trying to make, but you've got to turn up with yourself to work. So the counselling session is owned by you, so you have to keep yourself safe. And if you need to take a break, or you feel like you're getting triggered, or you want to stop and watch the rest some other time, do what you need to do. And also keep in touch so that I can keep everyone's own topics and their processes looked after. You can give me content that can either be done anonymously or featured, and we can sort of keep this group about you. Won't do that. You're an intelligent person, expectations of clients. I like to touch on this because we like to remind everyone that we aren't fixing, we haven't got magic wands. We're not going to make anything better even, because everything is what it is. What we're going to do is create difference while you live with what is what it is. And when you live with difference, you create something that's easier to live with, that's easier to navigate, that's easier to communicate, that's easier to celebrate, that's easier to invest in, that's easier to keep safe. So that's what we're working on. So no magic wands, just turning up and saying, hello, welcome people, followers who are watching. I'm trying to link it up with Twitter as well. So I'm sorry about my eyes because I'm on YouTube and Twitter. So I might look a bit bong-eyed to both, but just go with it for a little while. I'm going to go on Twitter for a little while, and then I'm going to pack it down so we're just on Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube. So if you want to tune in when the Twitter live version ends, you've got to go onto the YouTube, which you can find on my site. You can follow through the links. So complaints and queries. My governing body are British Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy. They are an amazing governing body. They are really in touch. They are really helpful. They're very kind. They have occasionally failed a few people that I know of, but they are very much turning up to their learning and their movement forward. So they take their feedback really well. So if you've got something to tell them, you tell them. But also if you've got something to tell me, you tell them. But if you want to tell me, that's great, because then we can work on that together. Because actually part of counselling is about me creating a space where we can challenge your ideas of self, your idea of me, your idea of the world, your idea of yourself in it. And so that we can break down conditions of work that you might be living with, or projections from society, or projections onto me and what you think my agenda is, or what have you. So we can keep everyone safe through transparency. And the first way to transparency is to say, I love learning. So if you need to tell me something because I've triggered you, or I've upset you, or I've said the wrong word, or I've got a bit of learning to do. Tell me, I will take that on board. But also, it could be a really good opening to, right, let's see what this trigger was and why it was there, and what we could heal around it. Because, of course, I didn't mean to trigger you. I wouldn't have wanted to trigger you. But if we have gained something golden, we might as well work on creating something wonderful out of it. And triggers, if you learn to understand and navigate them and communicate them, they're amazing things to understand. Because once you know them and you know your conditions of worth, your life gets a lot easier. You navigate it much easier. So you know what is at the back of your bus. You know what you're carrying around. But it's not you, but it can affect and infect your day, because it triggers you into an old sense of something, or a projected sense of something, or someone else's idea of you, or an experience you had one time that put you into the lowest sense of self, your worst version of self. So these triggers are like portals. They can transport you into another version, and maybe even a version that isn't anything to do with you. So for instance, if you're triggered, like I might be triggered with my complex PTSD. But when I'm triggered, I don't become angry or upset or whatever. I'm triggered to a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old that is so feared that they're going to die that I have a fainting and a fitting seizure, and then I might have psychosis and say a sentence that makes sense to that time. And if I don't look after the fact that I have triggers and learn from them and make a little boundary that says, sorry, I've got some triggers, that they're brain disorders in my archaic memory, in my amygdala, and when my body accidentally gets triggered, it's nothing to do with you. It's not really anything to do with me right now. It's to do with my 3-year-old, my 6-year-old, but my brain doesn't understand that right now. It just thinks, oh, the pool of blood, oh, keep the door shut, or oh, whatever, all these other ones that I've had. So they all make sense, not to now, not to here and now, but to sometimes, somewhere, they make perfect sense. So when you're triggered, it affects who you are, and it can make you who you're not, because in those moments at 3 and 6, I'm not Faye. I'm scared for my life. So it's not who I am, it's my fear response. So it narrows me down to a very narrow version of myself and how to experience myself. So we're going to be looking at that later in conflict resolution, which I think we're going to do today. So anyway, getting back to the contract, if you have any queries, complaints, questions, anything, get in touch through Twitter, at Autonomy Council. On Facebook, we are Project Snowball, Autonomy Counselling, and we are on YouTube. You can also email me, autonomycounselling@outlook.com, and just get in touch any old way. All my details are out there. Confidentiality. Everything that is said to me is held in strictly confidentiality. The only ways in which that is imposed upon is the triple harm clause and the terrorism clause. So if anyone's got any terroristic plans and they tell me about them, I have to inform the police, obviously, without letting you know, actually. With the triple harm clause, harm to self, other, or a child, that I would go through you with. We would communicate about my worry, what could help, what signposting we might need or you might need, and how we might go about doing this in the safest way possible. I wouldn't ever jump the gun on something with anyone, because you are the knowledgeable person on your life, and I'm not ever going to assume and think that I'm so clever that I've understood something. I'm always going to check with you that I understood this, because everyone's words can feel different on some days, and sometimes a really emotive word can just be I'm just using the wrong word, sorry, and other times it can be that's the exact word I mean and I'm writing, or I'm suicidal or whatever. So keep yourself safe. The confidentiality I will hold Other ways that it is broached is when I go to supervision. But when I talk in supervision, I talk thematically, and I talk with pet names, so no one's identity is ever disclosed, and I always talk in a way that says this sort of thing is going on, and this kind of relationship problem is in the way, or whatever, grieving, blah blah blah, whatever it is we're dealing with. And then my supervisor will give me some whatever advice or whatever input she thinks, and I'll bring it back and say, oh, my supervisor said, be very transparent about it, and we'll see whether it makes sense in the moment. I'm not ever going to cancel. If I do cancel, it's a serious thing, and I will give you as much notice as possible. You can contact me, as I've already said. Do it. You can DM me, all those sort of things. I don't take any notes. I don't like notes. Well, unless someone sends me an email with their case study-like story, and then I will note it down into a bullet point type thing, so that I can anonymise it if they've volunteered for it to be featured. That's the only notes I'll ever keep. Well, even then, I don't even keep them. I will destroy them once they've been featured. So I don't need or want notes. I don't like to write stuff and think I'm really clever writing something, and then hold someone to this thing that I thought was really clever some time ago. When people are in counselling, they need to be safe enough that they're not being held to a word in one moment in time when we were digging around. They have to know that we can dig around, and no words that come out here are going to be taken seriously outside until we make them super meaningful and say, these are outside words. And then we're like, right, now we know who we are, what we want, what we need, all these different things, and we can navigate with them. Until then, we're just shooting the shit, and we're just safely unpacking stuff and sorting things through and getting rid and taking to the charity shop and recycling and, making new shelves. And we're just making an environment where you can just unpack safely. So don't worry about, I'm trying to, entrap you into some idea of yourself, because I'm not. I just want you all to become your wonderful selves and have the greatest time doing it. So we're at the end of contract. I'm going to start with a little sip of my juice. We're going to bring it on the juice, baby. Okay. I'm going to do a little bit about becoming self, because I want to do conflict resolution tonight, and we're going to feature someone or a couple in a sibling relationship, and there's some conflict resolution going on. So we're going to sort of go through that in a sort of light way. But first of all, I want both people, or everyone in fact, to sit down and think about becoming themselves, so that they can then create an environment where someone else can have the space to become themselves, and both are equally respected, because we're both just a self, we're just being ourselves in our own perspective, which is all we can be, with the genetics we're born with, the perspective and historic that we have, and the body we have right now, plus the skills that we've accumulated along the way. And if we haven't had a lot of help and support, then we might not have many. And if we've had loads of help and support, then we might have quite a few that we just think is everyone's got them, and we're misassuming there, because no, not everyone does have them. Not everyone is even safe enough to think they're allowed them. So some people, if we start, aren't even, and it's very, I've done this about 6 times in the years that I've been a counsellor, where I've started from what I call 0 with someone, and including myself, which is where you're not even a human being, you don't have human rights. You just think everyone else does, and you love everyone for it, but you're something else, and you don't deserve them, and even the thought of thinking that you might deserve them makes you puke of yourself, because can't think of myself like that. And that's an indoctrination of you're not valuable and you're not valid. And it comes from multiple people and avenues in an upbringing of life that has said, projected on a child and their upbringing, that they're not valuable or like everyone else. They have to earn, or they have to prove, or they have to reduce down to nothing, because if they make a peep, then they're being selfish or greedy or egotistical or whatever, all these things. So if they start from zero, and quite often as well, people on the autistic spectrum, I've had two people, nearly three people, well, not a statement there, but there's three-ish people that have started at zero because they've been missed as a person with autism. So they didn't become a person, they just became a pretend mask person. So everyone knows this one in front, but no one knows the secret person underneath that has to hide all of this stuff that's going on and all this work they have to do to be normal and all these socially functioning neurotypical things. A lot of women who aren't caught with as autistic or on the Asperger spectrum can do that. You can miss them as a human being, as a person, because they just work all the time, and that's why they can get to breakdown or to enforced isolation, because there has to be a decompression at some point from all this work. So we want to think about everyone becoming safe enough to be human with rights. So safety is about, I'm allowed to relax enough to feel safe, and my amygdala is switched down. I'm not on high alert. What's going to happen next? What are we going to do? What's going to erupt? How are you going to take me? What am I going to have to explain? How many words are you going to have? What our amygdala is going to do? It's just, we're both safe enough, or I'm a safe person to come here as person rather than as fearful, threatened animal, because that's all you are. Once you're in the amygdala state, you're not person anymore. And whoever you're with, if you're both in the threatened state, neither of you are person anymore. You're both animal, trying to just survive whatever it is in the way that your amygdala does. And that's not a choice, that's a fight, which isn't fist fights. It's, I've got to stay here and sort this out. If we don't sort this out now, I don't know how I'm going to sit with myself, like thinking about not sorting it out, and you in some other room, like not sorting it out. What is that going to do to me? And then there's the flight, which is, I can't possibly stay here a minute longer, otherwise I'm just going to like say something, and I just want to shut up. And the more you talk, the more I shrink into my shell, and the less I'm here, and the less I hear. Then there's the friend, which is, oh, it doesn't, I'm just going to be your best friend because I just want to get through this, and like I'm just this piece of people pleaser. So anything I say you can't trust, because I just want to shut you up by being your bestest friend ever. And there's the freeze, which they can laugh because in this sort of deer in a headlight, rabbit in a headlight sort of funny thing, or they'll just freeze, as the word says, or and can sort of blank out or depersonalize or dissociate. So they can just not feel their body, or they can become a different part of themselves. And if that different part of themselves is the part that fights, or the part that runs, or the part that does something else really clever to put in front of this threat, then you're, again, not dealing with the person, you're dealing with their threat brain. So friend, freeze, and flop, which is my main one, where you just like faint or fit, where your body just goes, oh, faintest smell of threat, and it's, oh, I'm out there, see you later, bye guys, and we're out. So we've got my daughter sitting to one side, watching. She's not gonna, come and be, hey, high five, yay. So she's finding me amusing. So we want everyone to become a human, and we need everyone to understand their amygdala to remain human. So that is, whoever's in our household, we know how they respond under threat, and we don't judge that. We don't take it personally, and we do not judge it. It's a genetic makeup. It is an automated system. We can't change it, as we couldn't change that we need to breathe in and out. We cannot. We can't change that we're left or right-handed. We can try and train ourselves to be different with it, but we cannot change it. So accepting how I think I'm missing comments on Twitter. I'm sorry, I haven't got my glasses on, so I don't know whether I'm going to be able to catch them up later. I'm not ignoring you. Can you look on Twitter on the live feed and see if you can see comments and let me know?
Oh, my Twitter won't let me log in for some reason.
Oh, buggeration.
Can try again.
Okay, cool. She's just got a new phone, so she's just bedding it in. So, amygdalas. So once everyone, particularly self, before you start sharing with everyone, that you know what your amygdala does, and you can explain that, and also you can notice it. Before you get to the room, ooh, I'm in high alert, I'm probably not going to do well in this conversation. Can we reschedule? Can I just go and have a bath and then we'll do it over tea so I'm a bit more of a person? Can I just get in for my day? Oh, I've just had the worst day, I'm really in shock right now, you're not going to get any sense of me. So you can actually consider, what kind of person am I going to expect some conflict resolution from? There's not going to be any from someone who's in threat. And also, if you're calm enough to know that, I'm in a really good space tonight, I've got my real personage around, I'm not threatened at all, and I know what to look out for if I do get threatened. And when I do, I can say, oh, I'm getting to the edge of myself, I need a time out, let me go and get a cup of tea, and we'll come back to this. But I'm getting a bit shaky, I'm getting a bit jawly, I'm getting a bit that thing that I do. And you just know it and notice it. But also, you try and notice the other persons. So you make a safe enough environment that not only is yours respected and not taken personally, the others is also respected and not taken personally. So both people can be witnessed in their original form and how they deserve to be treated, which is as a human being, genetically born, with every right to be that human. And when threat is upon us, we can only respond in an automatic way. We have no choice in it, is what I'm saying. So the best way to conflict resolution is to notice when threat is happening and diffuse it. So don't go into it, oh, we've got them on the run. You're going to get no sense out of them, and you're going to get no sense out of you. You're just going to end up in a big, sloppy, torn apart mess because you've done it through threat. And no one is talking sense in their threatened state. And that's when meanness and spite and that thing that I said that I didn't mean, and all those horrible things that we all do when we're at our worst, most stressed, threatened version of ourselves, and we're chucking shit left, right, and centre just because we don't want to be the one that's getting hurt. And when you're both doing that, everyone gets hurt and everyone gets triggered, and it gets heightened until someone's on the floor restraining someone else, and you're having to try and de-escalate something. So
Commenting's off on Twitter.
oh yeah, they're off.
Yeah, it says
I'm just getting IT advice from my team.
commenting off.
Oh, so how do I make that go on then? Because on here it says swipe for old comments. Broadcast details. I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. Well, because it's on live. Shall I close it down live on Twitter and you can have a look and you can restart it?
If you want.
Okay. So Twitter, we're going, guys, but go on to Facebook, not Facebook, YouTube. That's where we're still at. And Magenta is going to try and fix this issue so that we can do this every time now. So, ta-ta for now. Oh, hello. Sorry, everyone. I think I stopped that. That's that. Right, there you go. So, where was I at? a little sip of juice. Everyone's safe in the room. So everyone has understood what kind of amygdala they have, what buttons they have when you say that word, when you do that thing, when you do it in that tone of voice, when you do that wagging thing, whatever it is that triggers you into your version of self. And sometimes people can get triggered, you know, when you go home, you've been an adult all your life, you've got children of your own, you go and stay with your mum for a weekend because you're having some kind of whatever party, and something triggers you back into like teenage mode, and you're suddenly watching yourself or someone else being like, gosh, I've never seen this part of you. And it's just this deep, archaic, like guttural response to a trigger. And you become that version of self. So we have all these versions of self inside us, and we all have to look after them. We all have to know what the triggers are and how our amygdala responds, so that when we're in the room, we can remain human being with rights. So human being with rights, so that we can become a person, is someone who has a sleeping status. So we know how we have slept. We invest in good sleep. We invest in a sleep hygiene. So we create a room that is good for sleep. We create a bedtime routine that's good for sleep. We give herbal remedies and good additive stuff that helps the sleep routine. And we take away stuff that like caffeine and what have you, away from that take them away from what is a good sleep routine. And we also might have an app that logs how we've slept. So in the morning we can sort of readjust what we're going to expect of ourselves. If we've had no sleep, and we don't realise that until the evening or the afternoon when we're like dropping. If we know in the morning we've had really no sleep, then we can say, right, I've got to make sure I have a proper breakfast, and make sure I stop for lunch, and make sure I give myself a check before I drive home, or I get in and say, look, I didn't sleep well last night, can we reschedule that thing? Or can you just expect less of me? Or can I owe you one and you do the kids' bath tonight because I had no sleep last night? So you become a person who is considered. Then you have also in human status a historic. So it's not that you have to share the intimacy of this historic, it's just that you have to know it. I have an historic that I have to look after, and it causes CPTSD and triggers. Not everyone needs to know about it, but they do need to know I have it. Otherwise, how do I look after myself? How do I make that entitlement to say that I have a very complex disorder that causes me serious body issues, and if you can't respect that, then I will have to leave, and that's fine, because I don't want to be somewhere that I'm not respected, but I have to turn up valued enough to respect the things that I need respecting. And if they can't be, then I will respect myself enough to leave and hold myself safe. And also not take it personally and be like, well, that's not my energy wasted on people that can't even respect me. It just eases up life to the people, to your work and to others' work. To people you want to share your work with or help support their work, and people that don't want to turn up to work, and also why bother helping them because they're users or whatever. So it just cleans up the whole easiness of getting through life, because you know who to invest yourself in, and you know when to stop investing yourself in people. When you know that you have this historic to look after, you know how to explain to people, oh, I had bad attachment in childhood, so it takes me a little while to attach to people and trust them. But, you know, if you're open and honest with me, then there's going to be no problems. I really don't like tokenism, that's my main thing. But if you can keep on the right side of that, we're going to be great. Or I had a really alcoholic, abusing childhood, so I like really open dialogue with alcohol use and blah, blah, blah. That's my thing, not yours. And what if I know that you can respect it, it will settle down. Or, you know, I have certain places I don't want you to touch me because as a child I was abused and it's trigger spots. Or there's certain words I don't want you to use because of my historic. Now, you being able to own that and create a boundary of safety that says, I'm just a body that's got to live the rest of my life with the whole historic that I didn't choose. It's not who I am, but it's something I've got to look after. Are you going to blame me for that? Are you going to respect the fact that I've got to drag this thing around and look after it? I can't chop it off, it's in the brain. So once we're allowed to have a historic that might have parents dying, it might have abuse in the home, it might have fighting and disorder, it might have drug and alcohol abuse, it might have. She can't do it. So sorry, guys, on Twitter. Oh, Twitter's already gone. Anyone who came from Twitter, we're not going back to Twitter. So then we have the next thing on a human status is your hormone status, and for men and women that's different. But understanding men, women, and anyone on the transgender spectrum, depending on what hormone replacements they're on, everyone is in a fluctuation of hormone state, and that affects who and how you are. So if you can know your hormonal state, the way that makes you fluctuate, I know that a few days before, in fact, it's a thing that makes me look at the calendar, because I just start finding my really witty, dry sense of humour, very funny husband, a little bit like, what do you mean by that then? What are you saying though? What, and all of a sudden he's not funny at all, and I have to say, oh, wait there. It's that time of month where you can't joke with me anymore. And for a few days, he just stops joking with me because I'm in too much of a hormonal that I just don't get jokes. And so he stops, and that's really nice, and it's considerate, and thanks very much. So when you know, and also on the other scale of things, with a male hormone, it's nice. It's nice to accept and not take personally that they will respond. Someone with a testosterone boost or surge or lowering is going to affect their human status and how they feel about themselves and their relationship with their own autonomy and anatomy and how they feel about self and their gender and all those different things. It's a very complex issue. So if you can understand it even slightly, to be able to say, look, I'm in a bit of a hormonal mess. You don't need to understand it. You just need to just cut me some slack, basically. It's not you, it's me, and I'm working on it. And then also, well, it's fine, of course you can. And if there is anything you want to talk about, or I can help you with something, let me know. Or thanks for letting me know. I'm going to back out here because I'm really uncomfortable with really intimate stuff. And it gives someone their safety to be like, I will consider that, and thanks for letting me know that I can keep myself safe because I'm really shy too. So everyone's able to be looked after in their own way of being. Then we have sexual self. So your sexuality, your fantasy, your play, your exploration, your safety, your privacy, your libido and your libido dynamics if you're in a couple or more dynamic, because it's very rare that someone's equal. There's always someone wanting and someone being wanted, or someone needing and someone having to make up excuses, or whatever the dynamic is. So understanding those dynamics and also the sex aids needed for a good sex life. So having even if it is, I'm asexual and I don't want that sort of intimacy, or I am not ready for that, or I am so uncomfortable with that, it would take me probably a year to even get to the point where we can talk about that. So just be really slow with me. So if it's that end where it's just so constricted, make it safe. Allow it to be super small in a seed state, and it's allowed to be witnessed like that. And we're not going to push it to grow. We're just going to go, okay, little seed, you can sit there on the windowsill and get some sunshine. And when you're ready to blossom, we'll start, talking to you and what have you. I don't know, whatever it is we're going to do, send the bees in, birds and bees. So giving your sexual self, and quite often, especially with MAPS, of course, the minor attracted, they have a very conflicted relationship with their sexual self because they're the most hated group on the planet for their born sexuality or their traumatized CPTSD left sexuality, and that can present itself in autopedophilia, which is sexual thoughts and imagery of your own trauma, which can also collect other people's trauma in your own face and image, and your own perpetrators, but other people's like scenarios, or POCD, which is pedophilia, obsessive compulsive disorder, where you get an obsessive compulsive either thought scenario, impulsive compulsive thought scenario, intrusive thinking, a fear of it, becoming a paedophile, a looking out for the paedophilia within you, a researching of paedophilia, even to the point where you've gotten so to the point of researching that you're into looking up child sex exploitation material, and that's how far that trauma can go. And I just thank God that the computers weren't around in my vulnerable state, that I might have looked that up to like wonder what happened to me, and to look at what looked like, and see whether I could remember anything, and whether it's going to search out something in me so I can decide whether I can live or not, and all of that sort of stuff. So God, the trauma that could have caused me by like being accessible, and that traumatized brain trying to make sense of something. And to think of teenagers born with minor attraction and trauma victims coming to terms with their trauma, with their traumatization, whatever that word, to be judged in their place of trauma and born state in their minor ages, and left with no support and everything. That's really, well, anyway, I'm getting off topic by getting on topic because it's the minor attracted people therapy session, but we're doing about becoming a person today. So within that, there is the coming to terms with your sexuality. I've done a few sessions on coming to terms with the minor attraction sexuality, so I'm gonna sort of skip over it and refer you to those ones, and if they haven't fulfilled whatever it is that you want to bring to topic, then get in touch. So understanding your sexual self and how it feels, so that you can be in a human state, is in your base level physiological safe status. And then you have your self-relationship, which is your environment of self. So if you know that you identify with, I have no rights as a human, I'm just anyone's doormat, and gosh, when you said that thing, that was totally me. Well, then you will know that your environment self is shit. You'll be talking real bad at yourself. You'll be a monologue of diatribe and how crap you are, and you better pull your socks up and stop being so lazy and shit and this, that, and the other. And if that's your environment of self, then how can you ever let anything, well, how can anything ever grow? It's not even about letting it. It cannot. It can't. If that was any old person in exactly the same environment, no one would make something out of it. So if you recognize and self-identify with that, then that's where to start. Your internal dialogue is wanting. Now, if you have something like that, I want to refer you, to the Rainbow Body Scan sheet, which is about connecting to your own processed thinking. So it takes you away from conditions of worth and intrusive thoughts and projections upon you, and your historic tells you that this is who you are, and into, oh, how did that feel, and how did I just talk to myself, and where's the empathy around that, and what are my instincts, and where's my vulnerability, and have I got home, and can I communicate that to another? So I want you to get a little bit more able to know how you are with yourself and make a relationship with that, because otherwise you can't ever communicate with another or self to another or conflict resolute, because you're not being a person within the situation. You'll always go away feeling like, oh, I took all the blame there, or oh, I didn't have any of my feelings considered, or oh, none of my needs are met again, and then the resentment forms, and then the other person's like, well, we talked about this last week. Why so angry? And like they have every right to feel confused and frustrated with you because they can't treat you like a person unless you turn up as a fucking person. It's as simple as that. So, how do you treat yourself? Have you got empathy? Have you got trust in truth? Are you instinctual with yourself? Do you have an honoured version of self? Do you know who you are and do you honour it? Or do you just become anyone's because they need this from you tonight, so put aside myself and sacrifice myself because their need is greater and I'm an invalid person? So find out who you are and get your status humanized. And if you haven't got a human status, remind who you're with that you struggle to be human. So when you say time out, it has to be honored. When you say, I haven't got anything left, they've got to honor that, not just pummel you more or start elevating or start chasing you down and pressing buttons. They've got to realize that they're working with someone who struggles to remain human. And if you batter down someone who's struggling to remain human, then that's not the not humans work. That's the bullies work. Once you know that and you carry on, you're then bullying. If you're both in a triggered state where you're what I call shit bat and balling, you're not sure who started the serve, but all of a sudden, oh fuck, we're doing this thing. That's slightly different because you're both in an equal situation. But when the dynamics aren't equal, there is always someone that starts it. So if someone isn't human, and someone is, then there is the undynamic, the power shift. If someone is young and someone is older, there's the power dynamic. If someone is underling and someone is overling, so they're in a parent-child, worker, employee, I don't know, elder in some way, like a group leader, and you are their follower in some way. In that way, the dynamic is always unequal. So it is always, and it doesn't matter how triggered both of you are, it is always the person in the higher power dynamic who has to take the lead in being the power dynamic. Look, I'm realizing we're both getting out of hand here. Look, I'm getting angry and I'm getting it on you. Look, you're getting worried and I don't want that. Look, we're in a situation where I feel like you need someone to support you. Or I'm getting in a situation where I feel like I'm not being myself and I don't want to do that around you. Or the underling has to be able to be given the invitation to say, like I do with my children, you let me know. You tell me if this is happening or you're feeling not listened to. Or like when we have our talks, our family talks, I will usually say something like, I want to talk about this on Friday, so think about it over the week. Or we'll have a family dynamic where we get everyone's input in and we make a decision together. Or when we do talks with our teenagers, me and Simon, my husband, will have one who's being the adult, who's doing the talking about whatever it is we're having to resolve, and the other adult is being the empathizer of the child, the supporter of the child, the faculty of keeping that dynamic smooth. So someone is always working as the observer, and someone is working as the adult trying to keep the situation, and then there's the power dynamic underling, which is our children, who are gradually becoming themselves in self-autonomy and self-governing, but they're still in a situation where they are parented and they want that guidance sometimes. But us understanding there's always that power and dynamic, and especially in counselling, I'm very transparent in working with the fact that there is that power distribution because you're coming with your vulnerable and presenting it to me, whereas I'm just sat here and making an environment for you to be vulnerable in. So I try and equal out that power dynamic by giving my vulnerability, by showing what I'm still working on presently, as a human being with stuff to sort out. So they can go, oh, all right then. And I can show them transparently how I work, and I can show them what my limitations are and where they can go. So that power dynamic is always equaling out, and it keeps everyone equal. So in a home situation, it's really important that everyone starts from that everyone has the right to feel equal. Like if there isn't equality, and you've got to think about that in your own home situation. How are you not equal? Where is your just discrimination or your stigma? Is there any, you might feel, some people feel like someone with a learning disability or difficulty or a condition that affects them as a person, they might not be able to make their own decision about self, which is like ludicrous, because of course they know themselves better than anyone, but like they're not allowed to make their own decisions. And so giving them that autonomy in a safe boundary situation that says, these are limitations of the choices, but you go ahead and choose whatever you think is like the greatest for you. And then everyone gets to become their own individual self in the needs that they need. And the last thing on this human status is relationship with others. So this is where we begin that conflict resolution, where we're saying, we're respecting how each person's perspective is. So in our dynamic, me and my daughter are both dyslexic. My son is Aspergic, that goes in and out of self-identifying with that. And my husband self-identifies with some Aspergic qualities and different things. So we have all these different experiences of perspective in the way that our brains work around things. And we did the Myers-Briggs test to see how our personality traits intermingle with each other and see what struggles there might be and what ways in which we can go, oh, we would work really well together like this because we're quite similar on those things. And that's why we always get into trouble when we're doing that, because we're total opposites on that. But now I understand that, I probably won't struggle with it so much because, well, I understand it now and it's not personal, it's just your characteristic. So when you know that, like my son who has Aspergic qualities, his way of doing things is totally different. My husband's way of doing things is totally different. My way of doing, like Magenta's way, we all respect our own way of doing things. And in fact, one of our greatest conflict resolutions between me and my daughter, because we're moon buddies now sometimes, high five, not at the moment, but sometimes, and that can create a whole load of hormonal mess. And sometimes when, back in the day when we weren't knowing what these triggers were, we could end up where we were in fisticuffs and I was trying to restrain her from throwing something at me, slamming doors, and we were like, rolling on the floor and stuff. And after the second time, on the third time, I just thought, what are we doing? And I said, I'm going to get off you now and we're going to talk about this later because we can't keep doing this. And then later on we sat together and I said, what can I do differently that will change that? Because I don't want to keep doing that. And she just said, just tell me once and then leave me to do it. And I just thought that's a really simple, that is a very reasonable, logical thing to ask. And yeah, I don't need to hang over you as if you're not going to do it. You will do it. And I can see how that is really...
Not Bailey.
Yeah. She said she's not Bailey, which is the one that does procrastinate forever and get out of things. So yeah, so we've never done that since, because I'll say, can you do this at some point soon? And then respect her space to do it in her own time, which makes sense to her autonomous life within our household. So we want everyone's difference to be celebrated and invested in. We want everyone's perspectives to be respected. We want everyone to be safe and have ongoing communication about that, their safety needs. And we want support and celebration of that. So if everyone can become a basic human rights human being, well then we've got a chance of some personage. We've got a chance of of some celebration and some investment into this is how I like it, or this is what I need, or this is how I could be represented, or this is what's meaningful to me, or this is how I like to celebrate. So, how to welcome and home yourself. I want you to do a few things as a couple or a self or a family or a group or a friendship base or a set of furries or whatever you're doing it as. I want you to all get into your little thing and work out what your group holds and how to do that. And I've got a few things here is by, if you could go into Pinterest and make a about me board. And if you look up, say, your birth sign, your horoscope sign, and you start looking through the ones that really resonate with you, and not all of them are going to, and you don't even have to believe in horoscopes and birth signs. You just have to find some things that are like, oh, yeah, that's bang on it. That really is me. And I want you to build that up. Then I want you to do, the Myers-Briggs character test, and that's on humanmetrics.com, and it's like 40 odd questions, and it gives you a basic result of who you are, and you just read it with the idea of how accurate is this, because you know how accurate it is. You could highlight, or you could go, yeah, that's 80% accurate. Then you go on to Pinterest again and put in your set of letters, and you come up with all the ones, and you pin all the ones that are bang on, the ones that really resonate and find meaningful to you, and you start building up this character about me board. And then you can put on your spectrum of emotional self, so that you can put on how your amygdala reacts. Are you a fight, flight, freeze, friend, or flop? How do you like to conflict resolute? What things press your buttons? So you can have memes that really, and you can pin them. You can find anything and make a pin out of it. So it doesn't even have to be on Pinterest. You can be on Twitter and find something really funny that really just resonates with your mapness, and you can pin it. And then on your me board, there'll be someone that goes, if you want to share it with them, oh, I really get that. Oh, I'm sorry you feel like that. Oh, that's really great you feel like that. Oh, I really want to invest in that because that's amazing, or whatever it is. And in your spectrum of emotional self, that includes your struggling mania, no, like the world's going to end, fuck it type self, and your I can't get out of bed, so depressed, nothing is worth it self. And we want to include your whole spectrum, so someone can see you're a full colour rainbow, or you're up the dark blues and grey ends, or you're full on sunshine, or you're whatever, so that they can see, wow, God, I'm getting a real idea of who this person is, and I can share with them, I can invest in them. And I want you to think about parts of who you are. So you can put in mother, or kick-ass mother, or you can put in what kind of job you are, if you have a real profession and career, and there's like memes and Pinterest things that really resonate. You're like an animal lover and you're a vet, or you're like a civil rights activist and you're blah blah blah, and you can put all, this really meaningful, your ethics and profound stuff that makes you, that your belief systems and your stuff that makes something of you. And those parts of who you are, what kind of mother you are, what kind of fears you have, what kind of sister you are, what kind of friend you are, what kind of lover you are, what kind of whatever you are. And that adds to this me board. You can put on there also your ailments. So you can find memes that cover the fact that I've got a fractured spine and I've got a scooter and I can walk but not far and it hurts. So, give me a break. And CPTSD or bipolar, or then you struggle with that too, or you found some ways to not struggle with that, or your amygdala response is intrusive thinking, or overeating, or over-exercising, or anxiety, or depression, or cleaning, or whatever it is that your body does to show that it's stress, or to deal with stress, or to make stress worse, or to punish stress. So once you know that, and you can put a funny meme on there, it becomes a thing that you can look after, and people can go, "Oi, you weirdo showing up. Oi, are you cleaning, or are you manic cleaning?" And I will have friends back in the day when I didn't used to look after myself. If I was on Facebook going, "Oh, I've just had a massive clean," they'd be like, "Are you all right, Faye? Because I've noticed you're doing a lot of cleaning, or I noticed you're doing a lot of exercising." And that'll be like, "Oh God, yeah, you're right. Fuck, I've slipped again, haven't I? And I'm doing my whole thing again," which I don't do anymore because it hurts so much. But I look after myself now. So find out who you are and how your self-governance and autonomy shows, so that you can find this inherent character me Pinterest board that shows your good, bad, and ugly. So that if you want to meet someone or remind yourself of who you are and the work you've done and everything that you've gone through or collated or configured, or how far you've come, because, "Oh, I used to feel that way and I'm going to remove that because I feel this way now," and create an evolution of it. Then we want to look at your genetic disposition. So this is about lowering expectations so that you can remain the human being you are. So if you're living with in your genetic disposition, it's statements. So it's, are you dyslexic? Are you on the autistic spectrum? Are you have a learning disability? Do you have condition, disease, an ailment, disability, anything that is going to hinder you being yourself? Because if I'm in a high pain day, I'm not myself, and it's unfair to expect me to be myself, because I'm just a human body in a lot of pain. There is no failure. So we've got to remember what each person's ailments are and how they factor into them being a human being. So in conflict resolution, it's about turning up with the congruence of that and saying, "Listen, I'm really struggling today with this, so don't take my tone of voice wrong, or don't take that I'm being snappy wrong. It's not you, it's the pain. And if you need to do this tonight, then you've got to accept that I sound like this, okay?" So then you can stay within your ailments whilst dealing with the day-to-day, instead of someone always taking you wrong because they won't accept that, you've got a brain condition, you've got a back condition, you've got a poison thing or whatever. We've also got to think about in genetic disposition, as well as that amygdala thing. There's a lot of people that I've been in counselling with. There is a difference in the neurotypicality, so there'll be a neurotypical and a neuroatypical, and they'll be right and wrong in their relationship, which is really unfair, because both of them are equally respected as correct for their own set of genetic and neuroplasticity and wiring. And it's unfair to say you're wrong because your brain thinks of it like that, and I'm right because it thinks of it like this. And if I feel like this, then I'm right, and you feel like that, then you're wrong. When actually we just feel differently, and how do we hone both of those things? No one is right or wrong. Everyone is them. And so let's see how we make everyone them feel safe, because once you stop fighting to find who's right and wrong and blame and shame and judge, you're just into trying to understand everyone. And once you know that, then you don't want to have someone not be understood, for anyone in the round table to go home as if they weren't heard. I would hate that. So I'll tell you about this thing recently. We did this ACE score. I've done a therapy bubble on it, where you do your adverse childhood conditions. And I've done the PTSD therapy bubble going on with that. But we had a sort of joke about it, because neither of my children have an ACE score. They have 0. And I had quite a high ACE score. But they both were able to make a joke out of, I could have a 1 score because of this. And Magenta's was because her and her dad have a very fun, jokey thing. So there's a lot of humour that she'll go, "Oh, he's ridiculing me again." and he'll say, she's ridiculing me again. But it's all in this really great sense of humour, very dry wit that I quite often miss entirely. But they're hysterical. So there was that funny thing. But my son, who was having a funny thing, but also slightly seriously, because there's one of them that says, swearing, attacking, and being like putting down a child. And well, you do swearing, because I'm a bit of a swearing Mary. And even so, I had to say, look, Bailey, you haven't got an ACE score, because that would be dishonouring of people who do have ACE scores. But I will respect that in your sensitivity you find swearing really hard. So without me blocking me being myself, I am going to try and be aware of that when you're around, so that you can feel more relaxed, because I want you to feel relaxed. But also, I'm not going to get so heightened to holding in that I become unrelaxed. So we're going to find a balance, but both of us feel relaxed enough, and we're both respecting each other's sensitivities. And it was a real fun way of like finding something out. And so I'm allowed to look after and respect his sort of perspective, and him make a joke about it, but also learn something from it and make it real. So find out who is around your table and respect their position as something that they can't change, and that everyone has to learn to accommodate and respect and look after and be kind towards. Because if you can't be kind towards each other in your home, then you're never getting home. You're just going back to work in a house that you live in, which is really fucking awful. So get on the person-centered train. Think about your ailments, think about your fight or flight, think about your psychological spectrum or statements, think about your acceptance of your born self and your DNA. So if you're living with secrecy in your minor attraction, then again, think about that, how that is detrimental to yourself and how to keep yourself safe within that. And maybe how we could do some facultative thing that helps. Maybe we'll think about that if someone wants it, how to come out to parents or whatever, I don't know, you let me know. Then you want hereditary factors, conditions, body restraints, limitations and considerations and disorders, so that you can just see a generalised view of what your family history is. So if it contains institutionalised this, that or the other, it doesn't matter whether you aren't that and you don't associate it with it and you're the opposite of you, it will still have an effect upon you. It will still be a condition of worth. It still might be a trigger or a button or something that just makes you feel weird, or that portals you into another version of yourself when you're around it, or whatever. So think about self in all of these different ways. Also your body health, chronic and acute pain, disability, your meds and their side effects, so that you can stay within your human status. So if you're on a medication that affects you, let people know you're on a medication that affects you like this. You don't have to tell them what it is and why you're on it. You just have to say what the side effect is. And if they ask you, just say, I'd rather, it's private. And they'll be like, oh, sorry, and back off, because none of your business, mate. And think about those things, because sometimes it can be memory loss, sometimes it can be dry mouth, sometimes it can be anxiety, sometimes it can be nausea, sometimes it can be tiredness, and sometimes it can be sexual dysfunction. And if you're not stating it, the other person thinking, a whole marriage is different and I don't know why, and it's probably me. And all the time they're like hiding the fact that they're on a medication that's making them feel different. And if they just looked after it, oh, that's fine. If it's not me, then that's fine. We love each other and we can live with the side effects, but we've got to bring it. We've got to be valid enough to bring it. So Remember in your body health, your somatic memory, so unresolved body historic, your PTSD. If you have childhood, in fact, in particular infancy trauma, then you'll have a lot of somatics, and there may be things, touch, smell, sound, visual things, stuff that you wouldn't imagine. I can watch all sorts of child abuse stuff and it doesn't trigger me at all. Yeah, it's sad, and yeah, it's emoting, and yeah, it's whatever, but it doesn't trigger me. I don't faint from it or have any kind of flashbacking or whatever. But you know, something like a pool of blood or holding a door shut on Game of Thrones suddenly triggers the fuck out of me. So it's something that you can't predict, but you can make aware. You know, have this condition. If this is to happen, don't do this. If this is to happen, do that. Whatever. So people know if I have a trigger, don't freak out, don't make noise, don't call an ambulance. Allow me to take my clothes off, make me cool down, let me be sick, and remind me I'm myself. And of all things, don't panic, otherwise you'll tell my brain it was right to panic and it's already done all this shit, it doesn't want to do any more, thanks. And that will go on for hours anyway, so the more you panic, the more my body will panic. So as long as I let anyone know, and I generally, if I'm going somewhere serious or I'm going to a CPD thing, then I'll let people know so that, you know, I don't have to put anyone through it, and also I don't have to be put through it if something were to happen, and then I don't have to worry about it. So look after yourselves, boys and girls, and then also your mental health status. So that's your dialogue and communication internally and externally, your well-being, your mental health conditions, accommodation and care, your witnessing of your fluctuations, so noticing, and also scanning backwards and ahead so that you can preempt things. You can have code words, you can have trigger plans, you can have leave and get out plans, you can have close it down plans, whatever, to keep yourself safe. Your mental health status also includes your infantile and childhood historic home. So if there is any trauma there, it is a witness somewhere that is, what's the word? Facultative and, can't think of the word, but you know, they're educated to hold it. So you're not taking it somewhere that it's going to make it worse. You're going to take it somewhere that's going to, at the very least, keep it neutral, if not make it easier. So looking after that so that your mental health can get better. If you have a historic that is permanently in the garage or on the shelf or out in the front or somewhere, I don't know where, and then you're never your full human self, because you've got something that's not looked after, you've got something that isn't witnessed, you've got something that isn't respected and doesn't have boundaries and safety. So if you have a child part that's being ignored, then you don't have misgivings that you're a person, because you're not. If you don't home and look after your child parts as an adult status, you're not a fully functioning adult. You're an adult pretending to be fully functioning. Because a fully functioning adult has a 33% safe child, a 33% empathic parenthood, so that is my internal empathic system towards self and other, and an adult who's human. So if you're a robot with no human rights and you're just a monologue of hate towards yourself and anyone else is doormat, and you haven't got a child part, and the one you did have, you have nothing to do with, because they had that thing happen and you don't want nothing to do with it, then you aren't configured at all. You're just pretending every day. So I hate to break it to you. You need to go and recover that child part and make them safe. So get these things safe. Now you've got people in the room. You've got human beings in the room. And we want to make an environment where those human beings can connect. Remain connected and stay safe. So, if you have an environment of self and it is person-centered, which is what we're aiming for, you will have an internal evaluation respected. So that's everyone's internal space respected.
No one is better than anyone else's. No one is more right or wrong. No one is blamed, shamed, or uncovered. Everyone is seeing it from their own perspective, and that can shift too. It is not static. They're allowed to turn up one thing and leave another. They're allowed to be one thing and another in conflict, in total disarray. That's where their status is, and you're not allowed to question it because that is their human perspective. So once we start respecting that, oh gosh, there's a lot of perspectives around this table, and oh gosh, aren't they all different? And wow, so different on any given moment of the day. Then we start realizing that, oh, these are human beings with fluctuations, and let's start being a little bit kinder to this situation, please. So internal evaluations are respected, and ask them, how did you come to that evaluation? What's made you feel that? What's made you think that? So that you understand them before you telling them they're wrong. Because if you understand that they got it from this thing that you said, then you can go, oh my God, I totally get why you think that. And I didn't mean that by that word. God, in our house, this is what we mean by that word. Or, oh shit, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. I take that back, and I see what you mean, and that won't ever come from my mouth again. Or, no, I didn't say that. That must have been someone else. But like, I can see why you would feel that if someone had said that to you. And then all of a sudden, you're sort of resolving things that you didn't even realise were there. So respect those. Authenticity, honouring truth and feeling. So that's about turning up with congruence, about being authentic, about not hiding. It's about being brave enough to say, look, we're going to make a difference here. We're going to make an environment where we're going to be a little bit authentic. And if that's to say, and it's not to say we're going to show everything. It's like, well, come and look under my skirt. It's not about showing it all and behind the curtains and to the intimacy of the very deep soul of who I am. Excuse me. It's about saying, look, there's stuff you don't know about me, and you're not going to know about me if you don't make me safe enough. Or, look, I'm going to counselling, and I'm not going to share that to you until, you make me feel like you're going to respect it or give a shit or care about it in some way, or not at least ridicule it. Or I'm struggling with this thing or this side effect, and I didn't want to tell you, but now I realise you're worrying it's you, and it's not you. It's not even me. It's this thing. So suddenly you're able to be authentic, but not fearful that you're like exposing yourself vulnerably. You're just sharing something enough to give an idea so that someone else can have some understanding and go, oh, there's a human, instead of objectifying you by going, well, you won't let me know who you are, so I can just make you a nothing. You're a great big fat zero because you won't let me know who you are until you're valid enough to say, look, there's a few things about me that you should know. And that's not that I'm spilling the beans on my intimacy. That's just, there are a few titles that if you know, I'm dyslexic. I'm really great, in the whole meaningful, emotional side, creative side, but God, it takes me ages to read. And if you want me to proofread I've done some proofreading, editing thing for a student of mine today, and they know they've got to wait because I'm shit at reading. But once I get there, it might be of some value. I don't know. I'll see what she says. So knowing yourself and your little statuses that are how you are, not who you are or whatever, then you get them respected a bit more and everyone gets seen a bit more. Being human, so being rather than doing, basically, and that's a presentness, that's staying in your personage. Kindness always, unconditional positive regard, unconditional kindness. That's just about saying that in a person-centered environment, if you're going to live with someone or make something with someone or have a relationship with someone, for God's sake, have the basis of it be kind. If someone's going to turn up and you know that they're trying and you know that they're struggling and you know that they've got stuff and you know their human status and you know that they, whatever, then be kind to it. Don't think, oh, I'll rib it or I'll push its buttons or I'll be mean to it or I'll be spiteful or I'll hold in or I'll run away or I'll whatever knee-jerk reaction you do to something that makes you feel uncomfortable maybe, or feel, like you don't know what to do about it or whatever. Create a space where even if I don't know what to do with it, the very least I can do is be kind. Look, I won't, sorry, I can see you struggling there, I shouldn't have said that. Or, look, I'm not going to intrude, but let me get you a cup of tea. Or, hey, let me do this tonight, you just go to bed. So that you're kind to the situation, you notice someone, you don't intrude, you're just kind. And that breeds kindness, it's prolific. Then we want some kind of homeostasis, which is a balance. It's a self-life body balance. So when you start becoming a human being with rights, and you are a personage within a balance of people within your home or your relationship, and you have a balance of self and your relationship with your body and your physiological needs and your psychological desires and all those things, and your work-life balance. So you're in something that either fulfills you or that you repay because, I've got to do that for 8 hours a day, so I'm going to at least look after the human that comes home. So there is some balance within that life livingness, the stuff you have to do because we've got mortgages, we've got food, we've got this, that and the other, we've got to go to school, blah, blah, blah. Then we want home, so you're secure, safe, belonging and intimacy, so that you feel safe enough to relax, safe enough to go to the toilet, safe enough to sleep, safe enough to have sex, safe enough to talk about your feelings, safe enough to let go, basically. And homing, that's not about getting home and getting back to work because we've got to be sister or wife or mother or friend or worker again because we've got to hold in, or we've got to go home and mask because we're autistic and we've got to blend into our family again instead of going, look, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to do games night, fuck off. Now my son doesn't say fuck off, he doesn't like swearing, but he will tell us when he can't do games night, and like it's the bane of his life because I don't want to spend an hour with my family. I want to decompress from my school day. So, respecting and not taking personally someone's idiosyncrasies within their own body that they can't help is a real freeing experience because it's then not a personal thing that he doesn't want to spend time with me, he doesn't love me and he doesn't care. It's that his body's had enough today and we won't project onto him that he's got to do one more thing for us because in our neurotypical state that's what we're expecting. We're not going to do that to my wonderful boy. Same way as we wouldn't project onto our daughter that she has to be like Bailey. Like we have to celebrate them in their uniqueness and their becoming of themselves and how beautiful that looks in its own right. We want communicators, so perspective respected. So we want a back and forth, we want space, we want room for them to think. Don't fill your Aspergic, autistic, learning difficulty, disabled, some kind of power dynamic space with more fucking information and words because you can't wait for them to respond to the original thing you said. Wait. Let their brain catch up and respond before you pile a whole load of more words on just because you're good at them. I have to tell myself that all the time, that I'm good at words, I'm eloquent, I'm emotionally intelligent, I've done a degree, I've written a book, I'm fucking good at it. Weigh me. That's not my bloody impetus to just shove all over everyone because I'm good at it. I have to make space for everyone else to find their words, intimidated by the amount that I have. That is my responsibility to not outweigh people just because I've got loads of words and I can use them and will. No, I won't. I will use some and wait for someone else to have theirs because mine aren't any more important than theirs are. I've just got good at using them. And I want other people to find theirs too. Instinctual, we want flowing, evolved and principled. So not instrumental. We're not using person-centeredness as it pleases us. We're being person-centeredness. We're saying, every time I find myself, I notice myself being unkind, I'm going to switch to the habit of kind. And habit takes 21 days to make and 63 days to break. So it's only a couple of months. All you've got to do is say, right, put on the calendar, today is day one of noticing today is day one of noticing when I'm being unkind to myself. And every time I do it, I'm going to do something different. I'm either going to like smile or like stretch or pat myself on the back for noticing or tell myself something really nice or think of something I'm proud of or, you know, whatever. Reward myself for the fact that A, I've noticed the bad habit and I've done something different. And B, I've put in a good habit, which is the difference. And at some point, the difference will become meaningful. At first, it'll be any old difference because we're changing the habit. But after a while, your body will know, no, I don't want cake, I want run. No, I don't want bath, I want sex. No, I don't want sex, I want food, I want ice cream, I want, you know, reading, I want a massage, whatever it is, you'll know what it is. Then we want good enough, realistic expectations. When people aren't human, so if they're starting from a zero personage, they have generally exceedingly high expectations. And you think that they expect from you, and you think, God, just chill out for fuck's sake. You can imagine how they hold their internal. You think they're hard on you, you don't even know it. Who they are to themselves, it's a wonder they're even standing. It's unbelievable the level at which someone will self-flagellate with an internal intrusive thought, an internal way of being, and also an external way of being. Some people will actively punish themselves without even knowing it. They'll clean until they're bleeding. They'll clean until they're sore. They'll exercise until they're blistered. They'll withhold food or overeat. They will not sleep. They will do risky behavior. They will act out or lash out. You'll find someone who is a loving, caring, wonderful person destroying something or someone, or behaving like a teenager, or even worse, a toddler having a tantrum, bratish tantrum, because they're not getting their feelings seen or heard. And it might just be because one is a sort it out now and one is a let me go to my cave and let me think about this and I'll come back. And if we just understood that if that person just said, look, give me an hour and I will come back, I promise. And that one goes, oh, all right then, I'll go and make some tea, or I'll go and clean my room, or I'll go and have a lay down, or I'll go and have a bath, or I'll go and have a run. Then both of them doing what they need, and later on they'll come back as two human beings again, as people, to say, oh, sorry I nearly did that thing, or sorry I said that thing, or oh, it was this, it wasn't you, it was that, and if you could just be kind about this, or you should just understand that, or whatever. And then you're in the realms of conflict resolution again. So what we want is to notice when there is external evaluations needed or absorbed. So you're waking up deciding how you feel about yourself by someone else's idea of you. Or if you're sitting there thinking, oh, there's another person that thinks that, and you're questioning your very identity, take an internal look again and decide what work you've done and what work you need to do, and locate some stuff. So we are changing it from an external to an internal, and we're respecting those. We're changing it from an incongruence and a war against self and that numbing out to an authenticity and an honouring. We're changing it from a doing and working in disconnected roles into a being and a human who's present and witnessed roles. We're taking it from judgment, perfectionism, and unachieved to kindness and true trust and self-governance and achievement, because from good enough, there is achievement. From perfectionism, there is only failure. Then we've got from blame and conditions of work and projections to empathy and dialogue and a connection with your body. From a treadmill of existence and waiting for death to a homeostasis and life balance. From always working for someone or the host, someone else's doormat, to being honed in your own secure sense of self and a validity there. And also an expectation to be honoured and witnessed and celebrated as that value, not used and abused, and that's all you're worth. away from a buried self with no value or validation and no voidness, towards that communicated and validated self with their perspective respected, because we're all respected from our own points of view. From a fixed construct of self with that brittle foundation where if I don't believe this, then everything will shatter, to a fluid, instinctual, oh, I've changed my mind on that. That's okay. I thought this way one time and now I feel that way because I learned something or I felt something or I stopped being numb or whatever it is. From a burdened expectations of self and others, so those high expectations of perfectionism, to that good enough status. From good enough, we can all achieve and we can all see that we're good enough and that actually we're quite brilliant. And even when we're not good enough, we can see a human being that was overloaded and needs care and kindness, and oh, I won't do that to myself again, because that wasn't about not being good enough. That was about me not being a human being, because anyone wouldn't be good enough if I was expecting them to be a robot. And then it takes us from this fixed, static, blocked stuckness where we hide and we mask and we pretend and then we feel all resentful, to this immediacy, this willing to fail because we're just trying shit out and we're all safe to, because it's just how I feel today. I might feel differently tomorrow. Don't worry about it. So then we can get the risk of trying. We get back into our trial part where we've got permission to be and do, be and try and work on things. So, how to self-care. We need to think about in our household how that looks for each individual, and also how it looks depending on where they are in their life. So my son is doing his GCSEs, so there's been a slight shift in what our expectations of him are, and his schedule of self, and making sure he's having fun and having a relaxation and reducing his household chores or what have you. So, how to self-care. Notice and then listen to your body and mental health status on a daily basis. Morning, afternoon and night preferably. So you're noticing your shift throughout the day, and that is an ongoing reflection of self, so that you can stay with your immediacy. You can say, oh, this morning I felt great. Afternoons I'm always tired, so don't ask me to do stuff in the afternoons, or you're going to have to wait until tomorrow morning, or whatever you learn about yourself because you're noticing. And have that dialogue with yourself, because then you understand how you function as a human being. Then find out what your body and mind likes. So to relax, what feels soothing to your body? Is it a bubble bath? Is it lunch or dance or drinks with the girls or boys? Is it a pig out on pizza and ice cream? Is it a massage? Is it hot sex? Is it no strings attached sex? Is it masturbation? Is it counselling? Is it wine? Is it exercise? Is it sleep undisturbed? So it might be that you say to your partner, I need a week where you sleep in the spare room because I just need to catch up on my sleep. I'm not functioning as a human being. And he doesn't take it personally, or she doesn't take it personally, and all of a sudden you're a person again. And you might get to the point where like me and my husband, I have a really bad sleep. So during the week, because I can't be on sleeping tablets all the time, I have a herbal tablet and I sleep in my own room. We go to bed together, we snuggle, and he goes to bed in his own, in the yoga studio that has a step that comes down. It's a lovely bed. It's his lovely room. But he sleeps in there in the weekday, and at the weekend it's our sleep together time, and I'll have a slightly better over-the-counter sleeping tablet that will allow me to sleep through the night quite well. But also I've got those 5 days in between to catch up. So it doesn't matter that I haven't slept totally well with my husband. I want to sleep with him on weekends. I want to wake up with him, and I want to snuggle all night, and I want to have that time. So finding your way of living with the way your body is. I'd love to sleep with my husband every night, but my body is too light sleeper and he snores, and this is the way it is, and my mental health needs good sleep. So what are you going to do? You're going to make a plan of how best to live around these things without taking them personally. And now we have a great functionality in that, because where I would be getting up at the weekend and just getting out of bed because oh, I just can't take his snoring anymore. I just go down and start the day. Now I'm having a bit of sleep, and if I do wake up, I'll stay in bed and read, and then we'll just have a snuggle in the morning. We have this lovely time in the morning that is slow start. We, chat about our day and everything. So we've made it this totally different thing. Anyway, back with you guys. Is it holidays or weekends away or time alone? Is it a clean home? And that may be like I had to do, which is say, I can't do it myself anymore. My hands are crippled and my back is crippled. But I need part of our budget to go on a monthly clean. Otherwise, I'm not going to be sane by the end of this year, I promise you. So it's worth the money for my sanity. And now we're able to do that. It might be being cared for by an other. So it might be actually relinquishing sometimes and saying, I want you to be the adult today, and you choose what we're going to do, and you choose what we're going to read, and you do it, and you do up my shoes, and you just like baby me for a day, or I baby you for a day, so that you can just soothe that amygdala and feel relaxed and recuperated and feel like you've got no stresses on your brain for a minute, and it's really soothing. Or it might be meditation, breathing exercises, expressing yourself in some way through dance or arts and crafts or singing or whatever, being creative and investing in your hobbies. It might be creating statements of safety. So writing down on post-it notes statements that help you, like no as a sentence. Can I get back to you on that? I've said yes when really I can't. Can I bring us back to this thing last week, because just little things that allow you find those things where you get stuck. I used to, like, if I didn't get it all out in one go, or if I didn't get it out at the time that I thought, then it was over. Whereas now, if it didn't come out this time, it'll come out another time. There is no time end to my validity, basically. That's what I had to learn. So other people might have other things. So I want you to think about how you create statements of safety and what they look like to you. Care, considerations and boundaries so others can respect them. So work out, for me, I don't like this word, and I would really like it if everyone could respect that. I'm not going to take it personally if it slips out, but if you can just understand it's a really serious word for me, and I would appreciate consideration. Or whatever it is, whatever boundary, like when I say I've got PTSD, or when I'm reading and I have to say, listen, if you want me to read this, literally everyone has to be quiet until I've read it, otherwise I can't read it. And that's just my dyslexia. I'm sorry, I'm not being like a drama queen. It just, like, otherwise I'm literally not going to be able to read. So if you want me to read it, shut up and don't take it personally. Or I don't have to read it, whatever. Find your way of doing this without anxiety and confrontation. These are just basic human rights you observe with vigor for others, and now yourself and body too. So you have been observing other people's human rights and their right to be safe and understood and respected. Now we're just doing it for ourselves. So don't worry about it, and give yourself permission to say that at first it's going to be a bit clunky and a bit, you might be like, sorry guys, I put that boundary really hard, and it came out not how I meant it. I'm just practicing boundaries at the moment. I'm not good at them yet, so just bear with me. And you can just get a little bit of fun with it, and you can let people know. I really struggle to say no, so if anyone catches me saying yes, can you just double check that I didn't mean no? And then everyone can be in on the joke that is, I find it really hard to say no. I've got to write it on my hand. I've got to put an N on my hand for a month so that I can do it 63 days. So I can learn to say the good habit of 21 days, which is no, and the bad habit of 63 days, which is yes, whatever, because I'm not valid. So those are the ways that we start affecting that safety. Be ready to lose baggage, clothes, friends, family parasites, narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths. Remember, you are elevating beyond their ability to pillage your love. So this is about knowing that when you go through process, you sometimes lose excess crap. And that's because you're losing people that don't want you to grow, that don't want you to be valid, that don't want you to have a voice, that don't want you to be a human being, that don't want you to be respected, that don't want you to have needs and feelings, because otherwise, what about mine? And I'm used to you dishing out free ice cream every day with your ice cream van music on, and I don't want to start paying for ice cream or start feeling guilty because like I've been taking free ice cream for 10 years. They don't like it. And when you find your validity to say no, it takes a lot of love and effort and energy to make this ice cream, and I charge for it now. And most of my friends have said, oh wow, thank God you're charging for it. And I've been meaning to tell you to charge for it for ages, and I've been slipping in a tenner every now and then because I want you to charge for it. So well done you. And the ones that you want to get rid of will be like, think she's so and her ice cream's so and well, if she wants to give it away for free all that time, well, that's her fucking business. Rah, rah, rah. And those are the ones, well, we know who we need to lose now, don't we? So let them go. Lose some baggage. And that includes your baggage of yourself, which is some conditions of worth that aren't yours. There's some other fucker who dropped them at your doorstep and you pick them up because you're lovely. You take the responsibility on. You go, oh, okay, I'll take it in because no one else has. So let's just start shedding a few things. And then lastly, self-governance and autonomy to finding difference whenever you are doing the same old, same old. So that's back to that 21 days, 63 days split. Same is same. You know what it feels like. You know what it looks like. You know what it smells like. The moment you get a whiff of it, all you've got to do is go, oh, look at me doing same again. And do difference. Any old shit. Any old difference will do. Just do it. And at some point, never give up. Thank you. We've had a thing. Yay, we're not going to give up. So do that difference and make it impactful and share it. So when you're in a family or you're in a conflict resolution, you live with people, tell them what you're working on and how they can support you best. Because there's nothing worse than being helped by someone in the exact opposite way that you need help in. That doesn't help at all. So if you tell them, I need helping like this, and that I would really appreciate. But this is really not helping, so can you stop? Then it gives you that ability to navigate that and for them to respect that, you know, the way they help themselves isn't how to help someone else sometimes. So once you get to that self-care and you can communicate that and you can boundary and you can hold it, you then start becoming a person and you're able to hold that personage within two people or more. And that is allowed to be respected because then you can say, hey person, you're looking a bit, how's your self-care routine? Let me get this started for you. I noticed that you like doing this. I've got you in a few of these things that you like because I noticed you're a bit run down, or I noticed you're a bit stressed, or is there anything I can do to help? Can I help in any way? I don't ever start helping someone. I always just say, can I help in any way? Do you need any support in any way? Because then that gives them the opportunity to tell me what help looks like. I'm not ever going to assume that I'm going to help something because I, back in the day, have quite often done a whole load of helping. That's not what they needed or wanted. And then I felt like, they didn't like my help. But actually, they didn't ask for that. And that's just made them feel crap. And me feel crap too. So, you know, off yourself if you have that energy. Don't off yourself if you don't know. So then we're going to look at visit yourself and remain there. Homeostasis, find a balance. Now for me, my life balance, and I've done a craft thing on it so I can remind myself regularly, my life balance is seasonal and it's, you know, I'm all sorts of people in one, so I've got to look after all of those things. And, you know, I've got a rebel part and a rebel part that can't go on, you know, fast rides anymore and can't go out rollerblading and can't go out bloody all sorts of fucking shit. I can't do bungee jumping, nothing, can't do anything rebel-y. I've got to think cleverly about how I fulfill that rebel part because, she's got a fractured spine and arthritic hands and CPTSD and all sorts of crap that limit what we're allowed to do rebelly. So we do some really interesting stuff to keep my myself active and invested in. So think about how it looks like to find your homeostasis, dancing, PTSD care, singing, rest, be fast, be slow, girly time, boy time, have dreams and invest in them, music, ask, say, SOS, have that trigger warning, kisses, sleep alone sometimes, human status, buddy up, get drunk, child's play, games night, call on friends, movie days, lie-ins, passionate sex, food and water, mental health status and care, special marriage, 4 seasons in 1 day, reveal, considerate, be considerate of you, honour, excitement, live as you are, bubble baths, fuck up, say no, person-centered living, be a team, medications, us time, yoga, supervision or counselling, pain management, child cry, shadow self, join in, celebrate, thankful, be thankful, make time, cherish, have hobbies and craft. So find your ways of being you. Find out who you are. For instance, I would describe the parts of who I am as a child part. I'm Gemini, I have a rebel, I'm a weirdo and proud, I'm INFJ, I'm a Myers-Briggs status, I am disabled, I'm dyslexic, I'm right-brained, I have CPTSD, I have bipolar, I'm an empath, which requires care, self-care, I'm a warrior, I'm pansexual, I'm instinctual, so I'm in connection with my second brain, my stomach. I'm a bit of a Rambo head and I'm person-centered. So all those characteristics of me make up a broader sense of who I am. And you can see, oh, there could be a lot of shift in that person. And when we allow there to be a fuller sense of someone, we can go, oh, I can understand why you're a bit like this in winter and that in summer, and oh, once a month that affects you and blah, blah, blah. So try and get to know yourself through that Pinterest page. Conditions of work. I all want you to think about what conditions of work you need caring for. And those are things like, I am only loved when I am busy or successful or got money or not a person or invisible or whatever. I will be valuable when I lose weight, get a better job, can get pregnant, get a boyfriend, stop being minor attracted, get clever, I don't know, something that proves who you are when actually you're a valid, lovely human being without any of that. I'm not allowed until, again, all sorts of things can stop you because my life isn't worth living until I'm £10 lighter, or I've got this degree, or so-and-so thinks this about me, when actually so-and-so thinking anything about you is more about so-and-so than it is about you at all. If I need less, then I can, which means sacrificing self. It means invalidating self and telling self that you can survive on less than everyone else. You're not an equal to everyone else. How people treat me as what I deserve for being stupid or small or minor attracted or whatever condition of worth, fat or lazy or whatever it is you tell yourself or someone's told you because of whatever characteristic they have misinterpreted. And that gives you a condition of worth that says, oh, people treat me like this because of this, when actually no, people treat you like that because they're behaving badly and dehumanizing you and objectifying you, which is their work. Your work in that is to go, oh God, what horrible people. Let's turn around this way and ignore them. Has that affected me? No, that's about them. Get on with my meal. Has that affected me? Yeah, that hurt a little bit. Okay, let's make sure that gets healed tonight. So we stay with the self. I'm not allowed to because of, this is a big one. I wasn't allowed to have children. I wasn't allowed to have a partner. I wasn't allowed to even live because I was sexually abused. And I was so worried that meant that I was going to become an abuser. So that was going to really affect me. That big, massive condition of worth that was given to me by society, because abused become abusers, and not on my fucking watch. I'd rather kill myself. And that was an ongoing intrusive thought that burrowed away into my brain and that nearly killed me. When actually, even if I was minor attracted, that isn't a behaviour, that isn't a person of who I am. It's a condition I could have lived with if I had it, but as it is, I just had to come to terms with the condition of worth, which is lucky me, but I understand a lot of others still have that to navigate. Because I'm this means I must be that. So that this for that thinking that adds conditions of worth to it. So because they treated me like this, it must mean that. If so and so said this, then that's got to be true, and it just undermines and crumbles down your validity as a human being who's allowed, who's got human rights. When I'm perfect, I have earned it, or I can, which of course removes your permission for anything. You're not ever allowed anything because perfection doesn't exist. So when you're waiting to be perfect, you're actively saying to yourself, I'm not ever allowed to live because I have so high expectations that are impossible to achieve. And it might be that you're afraid of achieving. Some people purposely put on weight to not attract people because they don't want to deal with their relationship with their trauma body. So it's nothing to do with how they feel in their skin. It's about how they feel touching someone else's skin. And so they'll go through this whole massive thing to avoid, which is really sad. I am below everyone else. So invalidation, substandardizing yourself, objectifying yourself, putting the power distribution so you're so low, you're worse than vermin. And if you have that sort of thinking process of yourself, then you're not ever going to elevate into someone that is equal around the table and can conflict resolute. You are always going to be sacrificing yourself and then getting frustrated with it. So if you live with someone that habitually holds in, is a flighter and sacrifices self, so doesn't remain person easily, then they are like a volcano waiting to erupt, because there's only so much a human can eat shit pie before it pukes up. And that's just the way it is. So when they do puke up, try not to take it personally, because you've got to understand that person has eaten a ton of shit pie for the common good, usually. And now they have to vomit or die of poisoning. So let them vomit and then think, how much shit pie have I let them eat? I should probably do them a well-balanced meal for the next few days, because that isn't fair. I can't ever amount to anything or much. So that indoctrination that you are less than and you never will be anything more than that is a really hard one to get out of, to get from under the stone of. And repetition of self and that belief is hard fought. It's really hard to start when you're lethargic of the even thought of being valid or valuable and trying to become valuable. So it may be in those moments that you sit with the pain of being invalid and actually humanize and repersonalize yourself to the thought that says, how long have I lived in invalidity? And, how can I ever amount to anything if I never give myself permission to invest? Because that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then, yeah, you're right, you won't ever amount to anything because you're not ever allowed to invest. So if you want to be in it, you've got to be in it to win it, that's the word. And there's no point in me even trying. If there's no point in me trying, then there's a whole give up notion. And that tells you to give up on your life because you're not worth trying. And if you're at that level of zero, then you have to give yourself a basic permission to have human rights. And it may be that you need to go to counselling to gain that, because if you're in a home situation and trying to resolve, if either of you or both of you or all of you are zeros, you're not ever going to do that. You don't have the faculty. So don't, it's like asking someone who can't read and write to teach someone maths. It's not fair. It's just not fair. So don't expect that of yourselves. So if you've got all this shit hanging around, get someone in to help facilitate. They have studied really hard on themselves so that they can stay outside of it, and really hard so that they can make you become yourselves within it. So it's nothing to fear. It's a really joyful experience, the way as I've always experienced it. If I can just stop being me then, and of course that is a permanent disappointment, because of course you can't stop being you, you're you. So the beginning work of that is acceptance of self, that I can't stop being me, I am me. And when I start accepting myself, I can start navigating myself, I can start investing self, I can start communicating and becoming. I'm too whatever to even bother. Stupid, fat, ugly, boring, twat, whatever words that you have around you that state who you are and what you deserve. And we want to start noticing them. And if you notice a common theme, write it down and put the opposite up. So every time you think about it, you think, no, I'm not that, I deserve this. So you think of its opposing statements. So the conditions I care for are unlovable through my dad wanting a son and me being unlikable for my childhood in general. And that is probably just being a little bit different and very traumatized and quite depersonalized and not fitting in well. So that created this, oh, I'm totally unlovable, when actually it's not an unlovable quality. It's an inability to be accepted in or belonging into something, which I can make, but I can't invite myself into something else that already is created. So my validity is in saying that if someone doesn't welcome me, then that's their behaviour, and I will go and either make myself something where everyone's welcome, or I'll go and find somewhere where I am welcome and that I am appreciated as a human being. And we'll all laugh about those over there living in that world for them. I have dirty, which is one of my conditions that I care for, and that comes from my 4 perpetrators, my incestuous, infantile, sexual abuse, and not being believed or cared for, and there being a difference. So my siblings, similar childhood, had a very different outcome and caring situation, whereas mine was treated very differently. So there was that difference which compounded my knowledge of self, because it must be because I'm this, because they got help and this and that and the other, and it was just me that didn't. So it compounded those ideas. So once you understand that was other people's inability, and you wash off that dirt every time you see it on you as something that doesn't deserve to be on you and something that's cared for, you can then start navigating it and be vulnerable with it. There's a whole load of them. I'm not going to go through them because you don't need them. But if you think about what conditions you can care for, I used to feel stupid instead of dyslexic. Now I'm dyslexic. I'm not disposable. I'm very valid. I'm not a weirdo. I am a weirdo. I'm not evil. That was a fear-based insult onto trauma, which shouldn't have been done by society. And once you know those things that are at the back of the bus that you look after, you can navigate them all. And you can say to someone, look, I'm feeling really this today. It's about me, not you, and I just need that caring for. So I want you all to try and think about inviting home your child parts, because that's where your triggers lay. That's where your bottoms are. That's how you press each other. And in terms of the conflict resolution, that we are featuring today, the sibling relationship, it may be that one is more like one parent and another is more like the other parent, and the way that they trigger each other triggers the worst part of each other's experiencing from those opposite parents. So it's not even about the 2 siblings, it's about the parents and how they were with each other as a father and mother, husband and wife, how they were as father and mother, to each of the siblings, and that might have been different as it trickled down. So all of those interweaves can create triggers, and if we understand them, we don't have to know the intimacy of it, but if we understand, oh, there's this interweave, there's that interweave, it's easier to elevate above it instead of getting stuck in it into the fisticuffs of chucking things at each other and swearing, shouting, and being spiteful and saying horrible things because you've reminded me of mum and you've triggered me like dad used to, and now we both feel like our most angry, worst version of self, instead of remembering, oh, both of us have had a tough time and both of us do have buttons that can be pressed, and yeah, we do have triggers left over, and there are a few conditions of work that we haven't looked after, and if we can't be kind to each other, then what the fuck, you know? So we want to think about that. I want you to visit old photo albums, watch programs and cartoons from your childhood, write your child, him or her, a letter, have a slumber party for them and watch things and buy stuff that might remind you of what you might have eaten in the day as a child's slumber party. Reminisce in hobbies you used to make time for. Treat yourself as precious, like you are your own self's child parts, bestest mummy or daddy, and you're just going to be the most gorgeous to them and give them everything you might have ever wanted or might ever give to your own children or child if you had them. Love on your child part and listen to what they have to say. Have an outing to an old favourite place. Eat foods and sweets that you used to have. Play dress up from charity shops and buy outfits that make you feel more child part. This is just one of my dresses that I wear, which is the vintage dress, but it is quite child part. It's got like this scene on it, and it could be quite go and push me on the swings and make me feel like that care that someone would care to push me on the swings for 10 minutes instead of, no, we haven't got time, you know, and like soothe that thing. Cherish the boundaries, the boundless life they have, and give them boundaries to make them safe. So I want you to think about your child parts. I want you to do your Pinterest boards of self, but I also want you to think about your child parts, what's missing, how they need to be safe, how you visit them, and all that list that I've just said, and work out what's missing and what needs visiting, and how you can reinvigorate that part of you that gives you permission to play, permission full stop, excitement, risk to just, yeah, whatever, let's try, because what's the worst going to happen? The rights to educate, because, oh, you get it wrong like the first 20 times, don't worry about it. Oh yeah, you will feel silly, it's fine. Silly is the destination, you know. That's what child part wants. They want to feel silly, they want to be relaxed, they have human rights, they are allowed to say no, they are allowed to say yes, they are allowed to say mine and me and whatever. So we need a child part that's invested in, and if you haven't got one, then you need to go and search for them, so that you can have emancipation of the authentic self, and you can fly away into your deepest, you know, you can fly away into your whole spectrum of self and come back safe. So we want to invest and celebrate, and we want to support and care. So we want to invest and celebrate into our configurations of self. So that's our Pinterest board of self. And we want to support and care for our conditions of worth, our triggers, our amygdalas, our basic human status and physiological self. Then we want to think about our roles. And so for instance, my roles of self include, I'm a human being, not doing, so I'm body, mind and soul now. I'm not a robot anymore. I hold my human status and I am proud of it and I protect it. That is part of my role as a person, to be a human. And that's because I started from zero, so I think that's why I take it so seriously. If you had a lovely childhood and were raised wonderful, you probably don't have to maintain a human being. You're probably just entitled to be human, what the fuck? But those of us who start with zero, we have to hold human being as a role, and we have to invest in it, and we have to boundary it, because it's very easy to lose our human status. So if you're one of us, think about that zero status. If you're one of them that has the entitled human status, think about any ones that might not. Can you see anyone sacrificing themselves? Can you see anyone holding in, masking, pretending because they just have to be a good girl or a good boy or carry on? Invite them to be as safe as you are, basically. Share the safety. I'm a person called Faye, so I have to hold my role as I am Faye. I'm not all these roles. I am a Faye. I've got to remember that. A Faye looks like me. And how does a Faye feel today? I am a wife, soulmate, best friend forever. So my marriage is a daily thought. It's a commitment. It's a being. It's an alive thing that I invest in and I'm profoundly connected to. So that role, it's very interweaved in there. It's very authentic. I'm a sexual being, so I have to look after my sexual self. I have to look after my libido, my ability to have it, my visit to it. We have to get rid of our kids. Sorry, too much information, Jenta. I have to get rid of them every now and then, because it's nice to have a no kids in the house visit than a your regular sort of keep it quiet, keep it down visit. So we've got to look after our sexual being, and we've got to give our teenagers their rights to become their sexual beings with their own privacy and ability to express that. I'm a co-parent with my partner, with my husband, but also with my adolescents. Our children are not children anymore. They're adolescents, they're self-governing, they're autonomous, and they're finding their own parentage in their own sense of self. And I'm just their co-parent that they either need or don't need. So we're in that transition of handing over, and one day I'm just going to be mum, or mama if they still call me that. I'm Faye, who happens to be their mum. They're going to be their own parent. They might come for some advice, but they'll be their own parent. I'm also a mama. I will be their mama forever, and that role will be there forever. So if they ever need mama, they just call on her, and she'll be there like a mama bear, ready, because that shit never leaves you. I'm a friend. I'm a friend as a real, authentic thing now. I'm not doing friendship and you'll never catch me burdening you with needing you. I'm an actual friend who phones up during shit and says, I need you, because that's true friendship. Being in, risking self, being vulnerable, taking as well as receiving. Giving as well as receiving. That give and take in the relationship, and turning up with your stuff as well as giving to others' needs. It's very easy and churlish to be on the outside being the best friend ever, because you won't ever catch me needing you, when actually your friends are in dire need for you to need them. Because otherwise, she obviously doesn't like me as much as I like her, or she doesn't need me as much as I need her, or I just feel more deeply about this relationship, or why can't she ever rely on me? Am I unreliable? What's that all about? And you create all these other things because you can't be a human being. So be a friend, don't do friend. I'm a godparent, and I don't have a specific relationship with God, but I take my godparenting very seriously as a person that helps them become themselves and has their relationship with life and their God particle and how to shine that brightly. I'm a sister, and I don't have any sisters in my life right now, but that's always there. So I'm a sister on pause, and I have to look after that, because occasionally that's painful, because I've got two sisters that I've got a whole family that I have nothing to do with. So I'm also a daughter, and that's not felt very often, unless my parent-in-laws who will, there will be that occasional thing where they do something where it's like, God, you do consider me your daughter, and thanks for letting me feel that. That's really lovely, and then I have to look after that. Oh, that's a bit sad also, because I don't really get that very often. So that whole thing, you've got to look after those roles and how they feel at certain times of year. On Mother's Day and Father's Day, there's going to be a sadness around, because there is not that connection with my parents. So I'm a counsellor as well. I'm a chiropodist. I'm a charity person for Project Snowball, and I'm a person-centred person. So all of these things, all of these roles, I live authentically. I live being them. They are a principled way of being rather than intrinsic use of role. And that's what I want you to get to. I want you to become where when you are in your home, you know what role you're in and you can shift easily and you can say, oh God, I'm still in work mode. Can you just let me have a shower and then I'll get into dad mode and then we can be boyfriend, girlfriend when we get the kids to bed. Or girlfriend, girlfriend, or boyfriend, boyfriend, or whatever configuration you choose. So think about your roles of self and how they affect your humanage, your person, so that you are a human who then has to fulfill these roles. And how are you going to do that daily? I'm going to leave it there in terms of that so far. I'm going to pick that up next session. But I'm going to finish today with this conflict resolution. And I just want to talk through it so my featured people know what my conflict resolution environment looked like. So first of all, I wanted a faculty session, facilitized session, so that if you're in a conflict resolution where you know that both of you can't navigate each other or know self enough to keep that safe, let alone navigate each other, a trained professional to be facilitator, to be the elevator, to be the environment that holds everyone safe, that is the buffer zone and the additive and the de-escalator. It allows the conflict resolution to become something really meaningful that you can actually take forward in life rather than an ongoing nitpicking. We're actually facultative work makes difference forever, because you actually contract in your sense of self and your needs within a group situation so that everyone leaves feeling heard and elevated, and everyone leaves understanding each other and the respect is there from there on, because no one wants to leave a faculty session and be the one that says, oh, we made all of those agreements and I'm going to say, no, I don't want to do that anymore, because actually they all make so much sense that no one wouldn't want them. Everyone does want to feel safe, everyone does want to be kind, everyone does want to be able to be forgiven when they're at their worst version of self and be able to communicate that and have it not taken personally. So I want us as a group to come up with a contract that makes sense for you two uniquely as siblings. I've done the good habit, bad habit, and I want you to think about what habits between you two as siblings, and you can identify your own and identify each other's, that you need to work on, so that everyone in the room has a transparent knowledge of what everyone is working on, so that we can all tread lightly around each other's, we can all notice each other's, oh, you know, you're working on that thing, I just noticed you're doing it, just wanted to let you know, well done you. Or, you know, you can support each other in making these differences, because everyone has a different thing they're working on. One person might be working on letting out or giving witness to how long they need to go and into their cave for. Another person might be working on self-soothing and distracting until the person is ready to come out of their cave and have the next instalment of the conversation resolution. So, and it's really important to make a what-if plan, which is what the other end of the contract was, which is if after 3 months you have no conflict resolution, after contracting, after facility, after working on habits and all those things, if there is no conflict resolution, then there has to be a get-out plan. So it may well be dissolving of a marriage or a relationship, a separation of people, a moving out so that siblings can become siblings again instead of housemates, or in that weird who's going to be the mum, dad today, and you're permanently fighting over, you're not my dad, you're not my mum, and you're in that we can't win situation. So it has to be, there has to be a deadline, otherwise no one's working towards something. And if no one's working towards something, it's just an open-ended environment that's allowed to be shit. And no one deserves to live in an unsafe environment where everyone's getting triggered left, right, and centre. And it may be that your triggers are so archaic that it's not fair to expect you to be able to navigate them. If we do all this work and if at the end you just can't live together, it's not a judgment and a shame. It's a, well, that's nice to know. If we didn't live together, we'd be much better friends. We'd have a much better relationship. We'd be able to make something of it. It's really nice to know that we're not going to blame either of us. We've given it our best shot and we're just not meant to live together. And working on that, if like you're in a relationship, allows the children to have a better life, because they realise it's not them, it's just mum and dad have fallen out of love. They can't live together anymore. It's not either sibling, it's the two siblings being stuck in the archaic idea of mum and dad's life, when actually that all they're doing is revisiting that, because they keep triggering each other into that reliving archaic situations, how mum and dad used to act, how mum and dad used to behave differently to each of you, or to each other, or to between yourselves. So all of that gets relived out. So the rules of an environment for conflict resolution are: respect each other's space, possessions, and self-perspective. So we've done a lot of that today. No one has the right to disrespect an other's perspective. They have hard-earned that, and all it needs is a bit of empathy. Is this what you mean? Is this what you're saying? So is this how you feel? And if you were to just understand that, yeah, that's how they feel. Like, you don't have to get it. God, I can't understand how you feel about it. You just got to know, wow, your perspective is so far from mine. I can see why we're conflicting on this. Well, let's make a space where both of those are included. Let's just push the boundary a bit wider so yours and mine are included. And we start respecting that. And we don't start throwing around disrespect of each other's stuff or spite to each other because we're getting triggered. We notice we're getting triggered and we go and self-soothe. We separate and say we're not going to deteriorate into lashing out and being cruel. We're going to notice we're going to get triggered, we're getting triggered, we're going to separate, self-soothe, and then relocate when we're personage again. I want unconditional kindness, and if that is unmanageable, leave until you can. So if you know that you are getting to red mist, blood boiling, lashing out, whatever, don't go there. You can feel that building up. Most people have a build up. Most people aren't zero blow. Most people are blow. Okay, so you know it's coming and own it. If you're a blower, don't. Know that you're going to blow. Tell everyone, if I stay any longer, I'm going to blow, so I'm just going to go for a minute and I'll be back later. And go and deal with it. Because it doesn't matter how much you shake up a fizzy drink. If you take the lid off slowly, no one's going to get splattered. And that is your work to do. If you're a holder-inner until you blow, you have to learn how to let out slow. You've got to go do that. You're not entitled to just blow over everyone because you've held into that point. You've got to learn how to let out slow. So separate if you can't have any unconditional kindness. And until you can, don't reconnect. Triggering and spite is not acceptable, ever. State when you're triggered and create space for it. So I want everyone to respect people's therapy, people's sore points, people's buttons, people's trigger points. I want people to start respecting that everyone has a breaking point, and it is not fair, and it is not sport, and it is not fun to purposefully jab at someone. Because one day you're going to push them to the edge of their worst self, and they're going to do something that truly they're not responsible for. If someone has been goaded, and it only takes an hour and a half to make a blister in someone's shoulder through the lightest touch over and over. And I know that through experience, because I couldn't tell when I was 14, a boyfriend that I went, 15, a boyfriend that I went to the cinema with to stop rubbing my shoulder. But it was just so gentle, and when I left, there was a blister there. But I had to sit through that film thinking, oh, that's getting sore, that's really sore now. Oh, that's really sore now. It's like moving my shoulder a bit. But I couldn't say, can you move your hand a bit? Why I couldn't say that, I don't know. It's girls holding in. But, don't hold in. Say, own your triggers, know them, and then remove yourself. Share duties equally, or acknowledge when it's unequal. So everyone has to invest in a home life to make it run smoothly. No one is the sole trader of the ship called home. Everyone needs to invest in that. We don't have male and female roles anymore. We don't have the Miss Homemaker and the Mr. Moneymaker. Everyone has to do their bit, including children. And so having that respect and like writing out all the chores and letting everyone pick one or two so that everyone has the one they actually don't mind doing. And then the ones that are left can be divvied out or can, kids can earn pocket money for or whatever. And then if there is a time when things change and everyone has to take on board a bit more, someone's doing exams, someone's ailments, someone's struggling, someone's had an operation, there's some acknowledgement. There is not an expectation and entitlement. There is a thanks for doing this for me and I really appreciate it. And then a gifting back. So when it's their turn, they get their turn. It's not, oh, well, you do that for me, I don't do that. It's you do that for me and we all do that for you too. There isn't the one that does and everyone who doesn't. Everyone has to, otherwise the one that does is going to end up in burnout and breakdown. So I want everyone to share duties, and if not, it needs to be acknowledged when it's unequal, and there should be a plan of how long it's going to be unequal for. Or some kind of recompense. If it's going to be permanently unequal, then some things have to move around so that equality can be spread out a bit more. So it might be that I'm not so equal here, but I'm going to be investing a bit more here, so that takes that burden off there because I know that you're putting more in there. So the life balance stays equal, not the minutiae. We're not going into minutiae. We're going on to a big seesaw where, in general, everyone has the chance to stay level. Respect therapy. So before we react, look for and state the triggers. And when someone is in therapy, it's quite easy for the person who's not in therapy to either get a little bit intimidated, a bit scared, a bit weirded out, especially if they're doing some crazy shit like neuroscience or aggression work, or they're doing stuff with the person that they have no knowledge of. There's some things that are private that they're not going to share with their friends or siblings or even partners, anyone but their counsellor sometimes. And that can feel a little bit exclusion or a little bit what is it, and all of that not knowing can make little swipes and little derogatory things or little disrespectful things or little bit tearing things down because of I don't get it. When actually the basic respect is that you aren't entitled to get it. You're not in therapy. This other person is in therapy. And if you can just understand therapy is incredibly hard work, it is draining, it is emotionally very difficult. It is amygdala draining, it is brain draining, it is physically exhausting, and it takes a lot of effort. And when someone works with me, I work them, and they will come home tired, or they will come home emotional, or they will come home with work to do, or they'll come home with a shift that they've got to maintain or honour. And it's all serious stuff, especially if they come with a 0 status. And if they come home to an environment that doesn't respect it, or feels like they have entitlement to understand it in order to respect it, then they're already going wrong. Because someone's privacy to go and work on some internal structure that is voiding their right to be human isn't anyone else's right to know. That is deep, internal, intimate, private work that just needs respecting, that someone is doing that work, and that is very brave, it's very courageous, and you just got to thank God that you don't need it. And if you do need it, if there is a jealousy or a why you are not me, or what's so special about you, or what is it that you need, I don't get it. Just allow yourself to trust that someone who has 0 status, or someone who struggles to be kind to themselves, isn't going to go and do counselling, which is incredibly hard work, if there isn't something very serious to work on. So that requires respect. It just requires a little bit of space. It doesn't need understanding. It really doesn't. And that you don't have to be burdened with needing to understand it. You don't have to be frightened with needing to be intimate with it, or dive into the depths of it, or do any kind of supporting or help or anything. You just have to respect that it's going on and adjust your expectations of someone who's going through it. And generally, counselling actualization process takes around a year. So if we're in early days and we're staying in early days, it's usually because the home environment is detrimental to the therapeutic movement. So every time someone gains something with me, they go home and get it washed away by their home environment or their internal structure of self, which says, oh, stupid or silly, or don't be ridiculous. So if they have themselves and a home environment poo-pooing the therapeutic process that we're trying to put in, that undermines conditions of worth and archaic amygdala responses and traumatic somatic memory in the body, and we're putting another shame cycle because someone doesn't get it, then we could actually psychologically scar someone because they're projecting on them that they're invalid for even going because they don't get it, when actually they don't have to get it. Don't try and get it, just respect that it's happening. Then there is a reclamation of whatever bond a person has in the conflict resolution. So that might be in a mother-daughter or parent-child relationship. It might be the friendship part. It might be the parental part, because the child actually wants to feel parented again. It's too soon to be co-parenting. They want to feel that safe structure in a relationship, an intimate relationship situation. It might be getting away from the parenting and back to girlfriend and boyfriend. It might be, God, I miss your body, or God, I miss your fun, or God, I miss like just being me and you, not like mummy and daddy. And in sisterhood or siblinghood, especially when there has been detriment in the parental statuses of those siblings, or trauma there, that siblinghood can become very fraught and can be malformed of itself, because if one sibling is older and becomes the parental status and becomes the caregiver and the one that worries about things, they can become resentful, as well as perfectionism and overachieving and over expectations, high expectations on the other. Whereas the other can become like almost regressing into their teenage part that would rebel against the parent. And you're like, you're my fucking mother, and who do you think you're talking to? And rah, rah, rah. So it becomes this fighting conflict, and no one is equal. And in that situation, the parent figure, sibling, seems as if they're in the power up part, the higher part of the power of this dynamic. But actually, in that situation, it's the entitled teenager role. So really, these two siblings are equals. But because of their parental situation and the trauma that is there, one sibling has taken on the role of parent, rescuer, adult, and probably gets incredibly resentful about that because it's a very serious place to be in. But in that, there is no rights, there is no personage, there's no equality because I'm your sister, not this thing. So they're actually under here. The person who is in the power high dynamic is the person who is of equal age-ish, of equal state-ish sibling, but is safe. They're entitled to be child, they're entitled to be safe, they're entitled to be the younger, they're entitled to be looked after, they're entitled to have had a childhood that maybe doesn't feel it needs counselling. So that safety around being self is a high power dynamic, and it outweighs the person who has to be the good person. So the one that has to be good and the one that's allowed to be whatever, this person is allowed to be human, this sibling is allowed to be human, this sibling it doesn't give themselves permission to. So to equal out that balance, we need this sibling to become human and do that work. That is that sibling's work to do. And we need this sibling to respect that work, but also to understand that actually this is a wonderful, entitled position to be in, to be safe, to be cared for, to have someone sacrifice their need to the point of explosion. They've sacrificed so much that every now and then they explode. And when they do explode, they're spiteful. And when these siblings are spiteful to each other, they lose all love and they're worst versions of themselves. And they probably act out mum and dad and how they were with each other and live out that whole traumatic, archaic shame cycle that was their whole childhood. And so, gosh, you can imagine that is an awful place to be in. But one is safer than the other. So we want to work out and we want to create a safety for both. And that requires both to know that both are struggling in different ways. The underling, the younger sibling, is trying to become self, is trying to have an autonomy, is trying to find that adult self-governance, but has this other sibling that's so fucking good at it and is so perfection and like self-sacrificing that she can't ever maybe feel that she can ever achieve it. So why bother? Because, you know, anything I do isn't up to this one's standard. So what's the fucking point? And there's, again, this disconnect. And especially when it gets into because spite comes from love. That whole chucking things at each other and triggering each other and turning the internet off and chucking things down the stairs and smashing each other's prized things, that all comes from, I've got one person left to love me and they just won't understand me. They just won't see me. They just won't see how hurting I am. When actually both of you do really care about that and do really realise that of each other. You just can't witness it the way that it presents differently in each of you. And if we were able to say, it doesn't matter how it presents, it's lovely that it presents differently because you're unique people. And if we could just make a home life that allowed two siblings with their unique perspectives of their same childhood and their unique perspective of their interweave of genetic mum and dad within them and their experience of mum and dad toward them. And then their ability to not judge so much. This role system we seem to find ourselves slipping into when we're in our archaic brain, because, you know, then we haven't really got our prefrontal cortex logically thinking us through into process of something in our authentic role of self. We just got this fight or flight. What's going on? We better fucking like sort this out. And if she doesn't want to speak to me, then I'm gonna like tap on the wall until she will speak to me. And or if she's gonna do that, then I'm gonna switch this off until she does respect me. And all of a sudden, everyone's being no one. So we want it to become a reclamation. So that reclamation looks like friendship, camaraderie. So we're in this together, not against each other. You've got each other left, okay? So be in it together. You're not going to start a war against each other as well. Like, life has already shot you a whole load of shit. Don't start on each other. Support. Like, I know that support is sometimes hard to foster when you've been raised in a way that like sees support as weakness or something, but actually that is a condition of worth. Support isn't weak, support is strong, support is camaraderie, support is belonging, support is love, support is humanness. So get on board. We want kindness, we want love, we want affection, and not in a touchy-feely way, in a I care about you way, in a how was your day, in a tell me all about it, in a oh, you don't love yourself, can I do anything to help, in a I've noticed you've been snuffling, so I bought you some cough mixture, in a I've just been thinking about you as a fucking human being kind of way, not in a I'm going to grab you and cuddle you every 5 minutes. But even that, it might be nice to spend a little bit more time sitting slightly closer on the sofa and watching a film together, you know, and practicing having a hug once a week, because you might find that you actually like it, and when one day you're actually allowed to have a hug as sisters, you might realise what you've been missing out on and how much your parents projected upon you that touch is awkward. You know, why does it need to be? Time together, vulnerability, showing your vulnerability, making that safety and having boundaries so that I find this vulnerable, would you please respect that? And you go, yeah, I will really try. And if ever I don't, just remind me and I won't take that personally. So that you can start building up this new siblinghood. Then we want each person to remember their bad habits. So, and we want them to remember them kindly. We're not going to be judging. We're going to be like, you know, so for instance, my husband, I call it boomfing. Like, he just gets a bit boomfy when he's stressed and doing something. And like the best example was when we were emptying the garage to convert it into a craft therapy room. And me, Bailey, and Magenta were having a lovely day emptying the garage, and Simon was having a hell of a day emptying the garage, and he was impinging on our lovely day of doing the garage. And in the end, I had to say, listen, we're having a nice time, and if you can't do it in a nice way, can you just go and do something else? And he had to go off and have a little calm down, and then he came back with a new attitude and said, yeah, I want to spend the day emptying the garage with my family, so I've put away that attitude and I've come back with a better one. And, you know, we were able to say, it's all right, you're just you, don't worry about it. We didn't take it personally. I know you need to have a drink of water, and you need to have to sit down, and you need to like not get too hot, and you need to kick something occasionally, and it's fine. You've got man hormones, it's fine. So remember your bad habits kindly and notice each other's. I know you're working on this and you just got a little bit that, so I just wanted to let you know, don't shoot the messenger. And just get fun about it so that you can start having a laugh instead of having a trigger. So the bad habits with these two siblings, with one of them being a zero starter, has very high expectations of herself and really does hold herself in just the most detrimental internal environment, and self-sacrifices to the point of roboticness and illness. So she has a very high expectation of herself, which seeps out onto others. And so her work is to lower her expectations just all round. And then remember that no one else wants to live in perfection, and they don't want to strive for perfection. In fact, that's unwell-being. So they don't want to catch what you've got going on. That's your work to get better from. So A, get better internally, but B, stop trying to spread it onto me. I don't want it. Yeah, so that's one of them's work. Her other bit of work is projection, which I told her to write down because she wasn't going to remember, but she thought she knew. So projection is about that person deciding that they know what it is that someone feels, or what they're thinking, or who they are. And that person I'm working with, who has the high expectation, who's starting from zero, has a very bad habit of projecting. And I have to quite often say, actually, client, I'm me, remember. You're not allowed to tell me who I am, remember. I know who I am. And it's okay that for a minute I've become this in your perception, but I'm just going to challenge you to let me be me again, and let's work out what this is, really. So this person has a real strong, down the slide, knee-jerk reaction into projecting. And I would like her sibling to notice when she is projecting onto her that this is what it is, when actually, no, it's probably not that. Can I just check what you think this is? So that might be a good way of checking whether she's projecting. What did you just take from that? Can I just check what you think right now? Can I just see what you're thinking I feel right now about you? Because I'm sure you got it wrong by the face you got on you, whatever it is. So you can start challenging their perspective, because this person's perspective in general is generally wrong, because their default position is, I'm crap and the world isn't worth turning up for. So if we adjust those and say, no, A, you're not crap, you're wonderful, and B, you can make your world whatever you want it to be, so it very much is worth turning up for. You just got a boundary on what shit you don't want in it, because that's everyone else's. So if we can have that client and her sibling reminding her of her bad habits and working on them, then the other sibling, who I don't know very well, but with her sister, we've worked out that maybe her two things to work on are lashing out and her disrespectfulness. So the lashing out is probably because she's a amygdala part that wants to sort it out, wants to get it done, doesn't want to go to bed with anger, doesn't want her to go off, and who knows when she's going to come back and talk to me again, and how long I'm going to have to worry about this. And lashing out is an easy way to get it started, to just trigger her into sorting it out. And of course, it doesn't sort it out, it makes it worse. So the work for this sibling to do is to ask for a time when this is going to come back. How long do you need, so I know how long to distract myself for? And that might be overnight. That might be an hour. That might be I need to think about this for a while and I'll come back to you. And so that person's work is, right, this isn't my work to do. They're off doing that and there's nothing more I can do. So what I'm going to do in the meantime, I'm not going to sit and bash on the wall and scream and trigger her so she can't think about her work. I'm going to do this, that, or the other, because that's a good use of my time. And then I don't get myself so angry that I lash out because she's ignoring me. She's just going to her cave, which she has every right to do, because that's what her amygdala states when she's in a threat. And you have every right to be considered in your amygdala state that likes to know when it's going to get sorted out. So both of you can notice that and respect it. So the older sibling can say, look, I know you want to sort this out, and I probably need a few hours on this, so just leave me alone for a few hours. It's my work. You go and do this. You go and distract yourself. Then the other thing is the disrespectfulness, which it just comes from the younger sibling having a slightly different childhood because she is younger, having been saved a lot of it because the older sibling took the brunt, and also having not some knowledge of certain private things in the older siblings' historic. So there's a whole load of things that aren't acknowledged, as well as the fact that the older sibling takes on the adult parental, worrying type role, which is resented probably by the younger sibling because who asked you, but also that the younger sibling isn't turning up to do all of that. So kind of who asked you, but also did you do it? Did you go and get your own house? Did you go and do this, that, and the other? So there is a reliance on that, but also a resentment of it. So it's stuck between a rock and a hard place, both of them, because parent sibling doesn't want to be parent sibling, and daughter sibling doesn't want to be daughter sibling. I mean, they want to equal this out, but neither of them can quite shift the role because of how it's been laid upon them. So we want both of them to adjust these bad habits. So this disrespectfulness is about really acknowledging the rock and the hard place the older sibling has been placed through no wanting or, she didn't ask for that role, it's just she was older and that's the experience she's had. So if the younger sibling could just acknowledge that more regularly, that's a hard position to have. And the older sibling could acknowledge regularly that the younger position is a hard position to have, especially when the older sibling isn't going to share all of that knowledge so that the younger sibling can understand what the older sibling is navigating. That creates a whole load of, coming up with your own ideas. So we want everyone to acknowledge and notice their bad habits and not need to understand why they trigger the other. Just understand, okay, I can understand that could be triggering and I will work on it because I do love you. And I don't want to live in this war zone forever, and I would like to elevate from it. And actually, if we could work it out, we'd probably live together really lovely and have a great relationship and have a really lovely home life. So yeah, let's do it. So then I want your amygdala responses honoured. So the older sibling has a flight, don't hunt me down, I need space, amygdala. And the younger sibling has a fight, talk it out now, I need it resolved, I want it sorting out now. And they need to learn to self-soothe and ask for a time when it's going to be resolved. So if the older sibling is saying, give me space, the younger sibling can say, I will, just tell me when you're going to come and talk to me about this, because I can't just live forever wondering whether it's going to get chucked under the carpet and never looked at again, because that might be what they're used to. The whole urgency about hunting you down might be because they know if they don't get this sorted out right now, you'll never revisit it again, because you like ignoring shit, you like burying shit, you like freezing shit out. So it might be their necessity to remain human around you because you're so able to objectify yourself and everyone around you that, forcing you to hunting you down so that they remain human instead of you freezing you both out into dehumanization might be their only way of survival. So if you think about it like that, it might actually help you navigate where this disrespectfulness comes from. It might be a survival mechanism because I don't want to be a perfect robot, thanks very much. I don't want to live in your world where all we do is clean and sacrifice ourselves. So the trigger actually we don't know who is the trigger, but if we look after the buttons, then we don't have to worry too much. Then I want a work on empathy. I want you to try and understand the other's perspective from their standpoint. And it might not be a perfect understanding, but it's a beginning point that says, I don't have to understand everything. I can see you're working hard, and I want to respect that. I want to honour that. And empathy isn't wholly about understanding the ins and outs of it. It's about reflecting back to the person that you get somewhat of where they're coming from. So checking in with them, checking out what you've taken from it. Did you mean this? Have I got it correct that this is what you mean? Can I check with you on what you meant by that? So is this what you're saying? Have I understood it correctly that this is what you mean? So that you check in with each other on your empathy, because you might think you've understood it all and you haven't understood a word. You might think you know it all, and actually no, you don't know nothing. So check on what you mean. Right, so we're at the end of what the conflict resolution contract I had made for these siblings. Let me know if you want to work together more on actually configuring that together. But for now, I'm going to end because I've gone way over schedule. Sorry about that, guys. And I will see you at the next therapy session on May the 15th, Wednesday, May the 15th. So in the meantime, stay well-being and stay in contact and let me know if you'd like any other content for the next session. So bye for now. Say bye, Magenta.
Bye.
See ya.